that was basically. I mean, we're the bigger unit. That if they needed more support, then we would be there. But thankfully, that didn't happen all. That didn't happen all the time. So,
All right, so just so I get an appreciation for the scale, how big was the unit?
when I was in, it was two battalions with four companies in each of them. So about 136 men per company. So about eight,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 1,000, and then and that's not even including really support. There's a lot more than that. It's probably I would say about 1,500. Was how big it
Okay.
is. It's a lot bigger now. Actually, they have a lot more resources than we ever did back in 2001. Well, actually, 2002 is when I joined the unit. But like now,
Yeah.
they've got helicopters. They've got I want to say a striker brigade is out there as well, and the actual unit is grown to three battalions now, with five companies each. So it's grown since I was there, or at least that's the last I heard. So
Yeah, yeah, it's not surprising. I think a lot of the units that we were attached to prior to 9/11 is because that was really part of a larger
mhm.
drawdown. Saw the world change quite dramatically for for ourselves in terms of size, equipment, all that kind of stuff, money. There was a complete spin, I thought, in the military direction. So it makes a lot of sense to me, especially with the missions and it just fighting two wars on two fronts at that time. Well, I shouldn't say two fronts, but two wars in the
Right.
same area. It's a lot of units got ramped up quite significantly, and the numbers got ramped back up, and it's been an interesting, I guess, last 20 years. It's unbelievable. It's been going on that long almost, but okay. So now you're in Italy. It's 2002, and so things are already happening in Afghanistan. They didn't pull your unit there, I'm hearing, right? For anything there, that was the 82nd's jurisdiction, and plus they had other Army and Marine Corps said units deployed to Afghanistan at that
I want
time.
to say 10th Mountain was already there too. Don't really. I want to say the a Ranger battalion was out there as well. But I mean, yeah, we weren't out there until well, I never went to Afghanistan, but like they when my unit got back from Iraq in 2004, they actually got bounced back. I want to say a year later, and yeah, they went out to Afghanistan. So right after that, but I mean, yeah, I mean they've been back and forth Afghanistan, Iraq. It depends on which unit or what the mission, what the mission is at that time. But like, yeah, I mean, at that time, yeah, we all thought we were going to go to Afghanistan. To be quite honest, there was no plan or there was no any kind of as far as I knew, that there was anything mentioned about Iraq. Iraq was way off the radar. So I mean,
Hmm.
maybe I wasn't paying attention. I don't know, but I mean, I with all the briefings that we had every day, we never heard anything about Iraq or anything like that. Just Afghanistan was the main topic of pretty much everything. So
Yeah, well, for a while that was the
right,
main focus, and then you started to see rumblings and a lot of conversations and warnings being given to Saddam about surrendering his weapons. They were really coming down hard on the blockades. If you'll recall, too, there was quite a large unit and flotilla that was actually heading to Turkey to invade Iraq from the north and the northeast. And Turkey wound up saying no. So they moved that whole, uh, I don't know, it was a huge maritime expedition force that then moved through the straits back up into Kuwait. So everything came from the south, more or less. It was quite an endeavor when all that was going on. So you could see that it was coming, probably maybe 4 or 5 months before it actually hit. But I think what delayed it all was the fact that Turkey said no, you can't invade from the north. So All right, so you get eventually though, you started to get pulled into briefings. I'm guessing, or started preparing for a whole different environment than Afghanistan. When did you start to actually feel that things were going to start turning for your unit and you guys were going to deploy?
Um, Let me see. So the unit actually parachuted in March 23rd of 2003 into Bashir, Iraq, which is it's an isolated airfield up in northern Iraq, um, deep into Kurdish lands. I guess you want to call it. I don't know. Basically, into the Kurdish area up in northern Iraq.
And how long was that after the invasion? I'm trying to remember my
I
timelines here.
want to say it was about a week and a half. I want to say it was like that because when we got there, we had these new like GPS trackers on them. I'm sure they have something different now, but like
Uh-huh.
so we can communicate better. And we actually saw as you saw on photos, the tanks, the Abrams going right down the downtown of Baghdad. We actually saw
Mm.
that on the radar. I mean, it was like delayed by an hour, I think it was, but we were able to watch it go through. I was like, ooh, so which was really cool back then. I mean, I think yeah, like I said, it half the time it didn't even work, but yeah, it's military hardware for
Okay.
you, or at least army hardware. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but like
So what was your mission when you were parachuting in? What was your goal? To secure that air base? Or what?
basically, yep, that was our main basically a foothold, even though Special Forces was already on the ground. So yeah. Basically, it was a foothold for us to drop in tanks from Germany and heavy equipment like Humvees and up armor Humvees, as well as armaments and ammunition and whatnot. And then once that was done, once we had enough of our enough ammunition and whatnot, we actually just started moving south to Erbil, which is where we basically parked for I want to say about a week, so the forces in the south would catch up a little bit, and if in case we needed help, and then we went down into Kirkuk, which is where we made our base of operations for the brigade that is. And we took over the big airport that was there. Well, it's actually a military airport um, there in Kirkuk, and basically once we secured it, that's where supplies and troops started coming in like crazy. Mostly Air Force,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then yeah. But I mean, we basically
Okay.
did Fourth ID's job, which was the floating flotilla that you
Yeah.
were just mentioning that should have came down to Turkey. If that didn't happen, if Turkey didn't basically rescind their decision to have them come in, we probably I don't know if we would have probably gone in. Eventually we would have gone in. Either that or we would have gone to Afghanistan. One of the two.
I
So
see. I see. All right.
yeah,
So you guys were option two when Turkey said no. I got it.
yeah,
Okay. So
yeah,
you guys were part of the team then was essentially just securing the territory. I don't mean just, but I mean taking. I think in my conversations with you when I heard what your job was, I thought your unit's mission was to seek out and find the WMDs. But that really wasn't the case, was it?
No, yeah, when I think they put us down in lock. Yeah, they put us down in lockdown 60 days before we even parachuted. We knew something was going to happen. We didn't know what. Obviously, by that time, January of 2003, we knew something was going to happen because obviously, Fourth ID was turning around.
Uh-huh.
Everyone was building up in Saudi and or Kuwait.
Yeah.
might have been, yeah, either one. And obviously we knew something was going to happen, and more likely we were probably, and we also heard that special. Well, we didn't really hear. Before we even jumped, before the unit jumped, actually, they already we already heard that special forces was already on the ground. doing their thing.
Yeah.
So, but like, I maybe about yeah, like I said, 60 days were locked down, and I had to train everyone. Like, NBC wasn't a really a very popular training, and I had to basically fight tooth and nail in order to get training, and no one took it seriously whatsoever because it's, as they say, nobody cares. But
Well,
like when we started hearing that we are possibly going, oh, I got busy. Oh man, I got busy. I had to basically train about 150 soldiers within, I want to say, about 30 days. Basically, the basics, give them a re crash course of
hmm
NBC training. And it was painstakingly, but I barely got any sleep. But at the same time, there were lots of people that were scared, and I had to, basically minimize that fear by, trying to tell them, "Hey, your gear works. I trust me, it works," um, and try to give them the facts of um, what NBC it really is, and most of the time would have been chemical warfare if we would have ran into it, but we didn't. Thankfully,
right.
I mean,
Yeah, thankfully is right.
yeah, yeah. And and I tried to, and a lot of the platoon sergeants were expressing concerns about our equipment and whatnot, and we had the latest when it came to NBC defense. We had the new what's called the J list. Well, I know it's changed now to another acronym. I can't remember what it is, but like it's it's a little bit different from what we know from Mop Gear. It's Mop Gear is charcoal, and the J list doesn't use charcoal. It's actually a membrane that actually is in the coat, and supposedly it knows the difference between passing air into it so you can cool down in it and what is harmful to humans, which I don't understand the science behind it because I never opened one up. But yeah, it's just yeah. So it's like, okay, we'll do it. It's all we got. So
Well, there's few things less cumbersome than mop gear when you have to put that on over your uniform and so forth. And of course, you never know what desperate people will do in desperate times. And you're talking about Saddam Hussein, who had used chemical weapons on civilians. So using them on the military wasn't that far fetched, especially when you're coming full force to take him out. Luckily, it never occurred, but I do remember even ourselves training in that gear, and you know it's hot enough over there. Wearing that gear in cold weather is stifling.
yep,
So it's a bear to put on to fight in and all of that stuff, and the fear involved in that. I mean, there is, it's one thing. There's no great way to die.
no,
There isn't. But having your lungs burn out and all that other stuff, just it's a horrific. It's a horrific thing to even think about, and I think that's why so many people in the military never really took it seriously. Because not really since World War One had that been used too often. It had in some areas and regions of the world, no doubt, but it just wasn't something we'd been up against. And its training was lax, let's put it that way, up until Desert Storm. It just wasn't a common thing. It was almost like, yeah, you had to a check in the box to go through it and put on your mop gear and, you know, learn how to stick that needle full of atropine, that syringe full of atropine into somebody's side. So it was, yeah, that was fun. Never was fun.
yeah, those are fun. Yeah, atropine is. I actually accidentally stuck myself by. I didn't realize how. I didn't realize how forceful it was on when I was testing it, but like during training, I punctured it with a pretty thick piece of canvas, and I actually didn't think it was going to go all the way through. Yeah, it went all the way through, but I pricked my hand when I did it. But yeah, it's real scary stuff. It really is. I mean, and even in the chemical school that they trained us in, It's serious. I mean, they